Well, today we're going to take a ATV adventure over on that island right there. It's called Kuprianov Island. We're going to take the jet skiff right there, and we're going to head over to a landing there where we're going to get our ATVs, gear up, and we're going to head way back into that island today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see what we're going to be able to see today. And it'll be, oh, the hair is a little bit messy, isn't it? Not too bad. All right, got to pack up, go. Today's adventure is really two journeys. The first is our own, a rugged ride deep into the wilderness of southeast Alaska. We'll travel nearly 18 miles by ATV, climbing more than 2,400 feet to the top of a mountain overlooking Duncan Canal. The second journey is the story of this mountain top itself, the former White Alice communication site, a relic of the Cold War. Long before satellite links and cell towers, these hills helped connect Alaska's distant radar stations to the rest of the United States. Our story begins after World War II, when tension chilled the air between nations and the race to watch the skies became a race to survive. Up here, technology and wilderness met, and what was built on this lonely peak played a small but vital role in America's early warning defense. As we make our way back toward the former White Alice site, we'll travel through both time and place, retracing the step to a mountaintop once alive with Cold War technology. Our journey begins on the water, crossing the shimmering stretch of Wrangell Narrows by skiff. Ahead lies Tonka Landing, the small gateway where land and sea meet, and where our trail into the forest begins. From there, we'll climb inland by ATV up toward the ridgeline that once carried the hum of radio signals linking Alaska's distant outposts to the world below. Up ahead waits a story written in steel, wind, and silence, the legacy of White Alice.
GoPro, stop recording.
As we climb through the forest roads of Kuprianov Island, the trail ahead of us carries more than mud and moss, it carries memory. Above Petersburg, tucked into the ridges and muskeg, lies the weathered remains of a Cold War outpost. Not a radar dome or missile site, but something quieter, yet just as vital, the White Alice communications system. Built in the 1950s, White Alice was a string of tropospheric scatter and microwave relay stations scattered across Alaska. To the outsider, they looked like giant metal sails or towering dishes pointed into the empty sky, but in reality, they were lifelines. These antennas carried voices and radar data across distances where ordinary radio failed. In a land where storms shattered signals and mountains blocked the line of sight, White Alice punched messages through the troposphere itself, bouncing information across hundreds of miles. It was the nervous system of Alaska's defense network, tying together remote radar stations, Air Force command centers, and even civilian phone lines for far-flung villages. This mountaintop site is linked to the beach below by a steep 6-mile access road, climbing through deep forest and crossing 5 switchbacks before reaching the summit. White Alice wasn't built in isolation. At the very same time, the dew line, the distant early warning line, was spreading like a frozen spine across the Arctic. Its job was to detect Soviet bombers flying over the pole, giving North America those precious extra minutes of warning. But radar on the edge of the world is useless without a way to talk to the rest of the world. That's where White Alice came in. Together, the dew line and White Alice formed a web of watchfulness, one set of eyes, the other a voice. For a generation, they stood as sentinels of the Cold War, silent and secret in the wilderness. But technology moves on. By the late 1970s, satellites made those massive antennas obsolete.
Snow-capped mountains.
As our ATVs roll closer to the site above Petersburg, the forest begins to reclaim what was left behind. They remind us of how geography shaped strategy, how wilderness met technology, and how, in the shadow of glaciers and mountains, Alaska once listened to the echoes of the Cold War. The name White Alice has a bit of Cold War lore around it. It wasn't an acronym with a precise official meaning, but rather a nickname that stuck. When it was being built in the 1950s, the Air Force and contractors began informally calling it White Alice. Some ideas: white is a nod to Alaska's snowy, icy landscape where the stations were built. Alice, said to have been chosen simply because it was a common, easy female name. Still others suggested it may have been a tongue-in-cheek reference to Alice in Wonderland, reflecting the surreal isolation of these sites scattered across remote mountaintops. The Air Force never published a definitive explanation. Oral histories from engineers and operators suggest it started as an internal nickname and then was formalized in its usage. Here there's a sign that reads "Contaminated soil and debris" under an engineered protective cap. Hazardous materials at the site may have come from several sources. Large transformer and capacitor insulation oil might have contained PCBs. Ethylene glycol is moderately toxic, and a garbage dump was located about 100 yards below the site. Waste oil was disposed of in 55-gallon drums and likely shipped out on the supply barges each year. Supplies arrived by barge, and crews rotated in and out by sea or air. The Duncan Canal Station worked in tandem with sites at Hoona to the north and Smuggler's Cove to the south, relaying defense communications from Alaska's interior radar fields to NORAD headquarters in Colorado. Because the military system didn't use all its available bandwidth, the network also carried civilian traffic, bringing long-distance phone service to Petersburg, Wrangell, Cape Craig, Klawock, Heidelberg, and the FAA stations at Indian Point and Level Island. Each site ran with a crew of about 12 technicians, mechanics, powerhouse operators, and cooks, keeping the station alive through Alaskan winters. When the Cold War faded, the White Alice towers fell silent, but their legacy endured. Symbols of an era when communication itself was a frontier, stretching invisible lines across Alaska's vast and rugged landscape. Now it's time to leave this white Alice mountaintop and wind our way back down to sea level, where our skiff waits quietly in Wrangell Narrows. It's been a dizzying day. The wild beauty of this place intertwined with the echoes of a world once gripped by fear. The same wilderness that shelters eagles and spruce once carried the pulse of global conflict, and now the quiet rhythm of renewal. Here on this mountain, the story of technology, time, and nature converges. A reminder that even the mightiest human works eventually yield to moss, wind, and rain. Perhaps it's best captured in the words by Sigurd Olson. Wilderness to the people of America is a spiritual necessity, an antidote to the modern life of machines. And perhaps that's what this place reminds us, that even where technology once watched the horizon for threats, the land endures, waiting patiently to be made whole again.